Well, hello, all my amazingly beautiful zodiac family and friends. My name is Libra Empress, and this is another episode of Terror and Tarot with Libra Empress. Today we are going to be watching 3 school horror stories animated by IMR Entertainment. Without further ado, let's get started, shall we?
This is a family tragedy that happened 3 years ago. My son Frank was 3 years old back then. I was living with my mom in our 2-story house. The neighborhood we lived in was quite safe. Even though a few cases of small robbery occurred, no huge crime ever took place. After dropping Frank at school, I usually went straight to work. My mom was on her own until we returned home. This was an everyday routine. Things were going well until one evening I came home and noticed tension on my mother's face. I asked her, "Is everything alright, Mom? You better return home early from now on, Shelley. Mrs. Brown was telling me that there's been a murder and a robbery in the next block. A woman was alone in that house when 2 robbers broke in and stabbed her to death. Today, when I was sitting on the house porch in the afternoon, I saw a mysterious-looking man. He was watching our house and standing on the other side of the street." I assured her that our neighborhood was safe, and she had nothing to fear about. "Don't be so scared, Mom. All you have to do is call 911 if you ever see anything weird. Also, I'm just one call away. It wouldn't take much time for me to rush home." I knew she was still worried, but I needed that job badly. I thought of asking our neighbors about the mysterious man, but then thought my mom just got scared hearing about the murder at the next block. Our lives went on and I completely forgot about all of it. It was a Friday afternoon and I left for work early that day. I picked up Frank from school and brought some food for a family movie night. At around 3:30 I reached home. My hands were filled with plastic bags, so I asked Frank, "Ring the doorbell for me, honey. Grandma might be sleeping." "But Mom, the door's already open." I noticed that the door was slightly open. Frank ran inside and screamed, "Grandma, we're home! Where are you?" As soon as I got inside, I felt really weird. Something was very wrong with my own house. The house was in complete darkness, and there was a spine-chilling silence everywhere. "Mom, where are you? Mom!" I turned on the living room light. The furniture was scattered here and there. I ran to my mom's room and ended up screaming in horror. My mom was lying dead on the bed. Someone stabbed her brutally. The white sheets were covered in blood. I was so shocked and broken that I forgot Frank was standing right behind me. He was watching this horrifying scene with his innocent eyes. I took him in my arms and immediately we both broke into tears. I called the cops and they said our house was robbed and they murdered my mom, just like that woman from the next block. They even suspected both of these cases were done by the same criminals. The next few weeks were the toughest times of our lives, especially for Frank. He was very close to his grandmother. I locked my mom's room and started talking to real estate agents. I wanted to sell that house and move somewhere else as soon as possible. Every kid deals with the loss of a close one in their own way. Frank became awfully quiet. I thought to give him some time so that he could cope up in his own way. Also, I didn't dare make him relive those vicious memories by talking to him about his grandmother's sudden death. One day, I was on the way to pick up Frank after school. I was driving when my phone rang. It was Frank's principal. "Yes, Miss Carter, I'm on my way." "No, Shelley. There's been an issue. That's why I called you." "Why? What happened? Is everything alright?" "I don't want you to panic. Frank's been missing since recess. The cops are being informed now." "What? What the hell is going on? Where is my son?" "We'll talk more once you reach the school." Miss Carter then disconnected the call. My heartbeat became faster. I drove at full speed, and when I reached near the school, I saw cops patrolling the area. Miss Carter saw my car and came rushing towards me. "Where is Frank? What the hell is going on here?" "Shelley, please calm down. The cops are searching the woods behind the school. Our janitor saw him crossing the fence and entering the woods. We have no idea why he..." Suddenly, a cop said in a loud voice, We found the kid! Hurry up! We all ran. I was running like a wild horse. We all followed the cop until we reached near a big tree in the woods. Frank was lying unconscious on the ground. A cop lifted him onto his shoulder and took him to the hospital. I stayed the entire night rolling down my cheeks. I don't remember when I dozed off. Mom? Where am I woke up hearing Frank's feeble voice. Oh, my baby, how are you feeling? I'm thirsty. I poured him a glass of water and lifted him into my arms. Frank finished the water in one sip and said, Where am I? You're in the hospital, sweetie. Frank, why did you go into the woods during lunch break? She was calling me. Who? Grandma. Drops of sweat appeared on my forehead. I felt goosebumps on my skin. Frank, you're scaring me. You know Grandma is no more. Please don't make things up. But I'm not making it up, Mom. She was standing behind the fence, watching me. I was eating my lunch outside today when our eyes met. She was wearing that blue skirt you gave her. She called me, moving her hand, and started to walk into the woods. I couldn't help but follow her. I said, Grandma, is that you? But you were... She looked back at me and smiled. She then put her finger on her lips and told me to be quiet. She was walking away and I was following her. I could feel my hands going numb. I had no idea what my son was saying, but the way he spoke, I could feel he wasn't lying at all. I could see the fear in his eyes. What happened after that? I said nervously. We reached near a big tree and Grandma pointed to the ground. She was facing her back at me and all of a sudden my eyes went to her hand. Her hands were filled with blood. I got scared and looked at her face and I saw... What? What did you see? Her insides were hanging out of her body. I don't like her anymore, Mom. I don't want to see her. She scares me. Frank broke into tears. I hugged him tightly and my heart dropped in my stomach. I didn't know what to do. After 2 days of observation, Frank got released from the hospital. I took a week off to care for him, but things didn't stop happening right away. Frank wanted to go back to school. I also didn't want to keep him home. I thought being among friends would take his mind away. But the next day, I received more shocking news. The school held a PTA meeting. After the meeting, I was talking to Miss Carter. Frank was standing right next to me. He was looking behind every now and then. There was a weird tension on his face. I followed his eyes and saw the empty hallway behind us. There was no one. I said in a low voice, What is it, dear? I want to go home, Mom. Let's go home. But why? I thought you wanted me to meet your friends. They're all waiting outside. Are you feeling sick? Miss Carter went to attend another parent. I took Frank aside and asked in a low voice, Frank, what's going on? Frank looked at the empty hallway once again and whispered in a scared voice, She's doing it again, Mom. I'm scared of her now. My eyes went right to the hallway, but no one was there. Is it Grandma? Uh-huh. What is she doing right now? She's calling me again. I don't know what came to my mind. I grabbed his hand and said in a firm voice, Follow her. I'm with you. I want to see the end of this. Frank started to walk and I followed him silently. We reached near the back door of the school. After crossing the fence, Frank again went into the woods. Within some time, we reached under the same big tree where he was found unconscious. He stopped. Frank? What is it? What is she saying now? But Frank was standing, still facing his back to me. I got close to him and touched his shoulder. He turned to me and I saw his eyes were red. His face looked scary. There was a crooked smile on his face that made him look horrifying. What happened next was beyond my imagination. Frank pointed at the ground under the tree and said in my mother's voice, Shelley, tell them to dig here, Shelley. Tell them. Now! I don't remember how I came home. Frank doesn't remember anything that happened at that moment either. A day later, the cops dug that area. I didn't tell them about my mom or anything, I just requested them to dig the place up. I told them that Frank saw someone burying something there, which is why he went inside the forest. After digging the ground, the cops found bloody murder weapons hidden underneath. The weapons were used to kill my mother and that other woman. The cops caught the two murderers who were robbing and killing people. Frank told me he saw his grandma one last time. He was playing on the school ground when his eyes went near the fence again. He said my mom was standing there with an affectionate smile on her face. She wasn't looking scary at all this time. She stood there smiling at him for a few seconds and vanished into the air. I hope her soul finally found peace. Before starting the story, I would suggest you guys to go subscribe to the channel. It turns out that most of you guys who watch me aren't actually subscribed. So, if you like the content and want to support the channel, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. My name is Emma, and I'm currently 13 years old. This incident happened a few months back, and the impact is such that I have some serious trust issues. Everything was going perfectly alright, until one day I met a stranger on my way home. I generally walk home from school with my best friend Patrick. He lives right across the street near my house. We've been best friends since kindergarten, so he knows me more than anyone else. We were walking when I suddenly felt someone was watching us. We stopped to get ice cream on our way. I stood on the sidewalk and Patrick went to buy them from the ice cream truck parked in close distance. I was casually looking around. There were not many people on the road. There was a clothing store on the opposite side of the road, and a pretty red gown was peeking behind the glass window. I was fancying it when suddenly my eyes went to a car parked on the same side. It was a dusty, old car. A man was sitting in the driver's seat and watching me. He had a piercing stare that started to creep me out. The way he looked, it felt like you could see through me. But what he did next was even more disturbing. He took out his binoculars and started to check me through it. I couldn't stand there anymore and immediately called out Patrick. "Pat, are you done?" "Yeah, here's your chocolate cone." "Okay, cool. Let's go." Without wasting a single second more, I pulled his hand and walked away. I didn't tell him anything about this creep because we all know that there are plenty of people like that in this world. It's best to ignore them. At least, that's what I thought. The next day on my way to school, I saw that man again. This time, he followed me all the way. I knew he couldn't do anything wrong in the broad daylight. I almost ran inside when I saw the school gate. I couldn't concentrate on class the entire day. During lunch, Patrick and I were wandering around the school grounds. "Hey, is everything all right, Emma? You look tense. If I tell you something, will you believe me?" "Of course. What is it?" "You remember that day we stopped to get ice cream on our way home, right?" "Yeah. Why?" "A man has been stalking me since that day. This morning, he followed me to school." "You should tell your parents then." "Right. You know how controlling they are. If I tell them about this creepy stalker, I'll lose the minimum freedom they've given me." "So, what do you want to do?" "I don't know yet, but I have to wait a few days more to be sure about this creepy guy." My parents are control freaks when it comes to leaving their daughter on her own. My dad never lets me go to a sleepover or to a friend's house without getting all the details. The only reason they let me walk home with Patrick is that he's been my friend for a really long time now. Anyways, I didn't want to make a scene risking my freedom without making sure the stranger actually had some purpose. Surprisingly, that day, I didn't see the man on my way home. I came home with a relief that he might have left. I finished dinner and went to sleep with a peaceful mind. I don't exactly remember the time, but I heard a rustling sound outside my room window. I slept in the left bedroom downstairs. At first, I ignored the sound, but slowly the sound grew louder. I got up and slowly walked to my window to peek outside. I slid open the curtain a little bit and saw no one was outside. The streets were completely empty. I blamed it on my hyperactive mind and went back to sleep. I might have closed my eyes for half an hour when I started hearing footsteps inside my room. I opened my sleepy eyes and it took some time to adjust my vision with the darkness inside the room. But as I did, my heart stopped in fear. I saw a man standing near my dressing table and going through my stuff. The window was half open, which implied he got inside from there. I wanted to scream, but I was so scared that no voice came out of my mouth. The man was searching for something, and he wasn't aware that I was watching him. Who are you? As soon as I said that, the man sprinted out of the room through the window and ran away. I couldn't sleep the entire night. Next morning, I told my dad. He disciplined me for not telling him earlier. Though I didn't see his face, I was sure it was the same creep. Another mysterious thing that I discovered was my comb went missing right after that night. What kind of psycho man is this, sneaking into a 13-year-old's bedroom and stealing her stuff? I eventually stopped going out alone. My dad dropped me off at school and my mom picked me up. I saw that man following our car several times, but due to my parents' presence, he couldn't come near me or stay longer to stalk my every move like earlier. A week went by and I didn't see that man. This memory was starting to fade away. It was a Saturday night and I went to watch a movie with my parents. I drank a lot of Coke and had to go to the washroom in the middle of the movie. I got up and started to walk down the long corridor of the movie hall. There was no one at that time. I went to the washroom and got inside to do my business. As I was doing my thing, I heard the main washroom door squeaking open. I mean, it's a public toilet, hence anyone can come in. I came out and washed my hands, and suddenly, my eyes went to all the washrooms, and I found that all of them were wide open and empty. My heartbeat got faster, because deep down somewhere, I felt something bad was coming my way. I hurried to the main door to get out, when someone grabbed my hand. I turned back and saw it was that creep. He pressed his one hand on my mouth so that I couldn't scream. He watched me thoroughly and said, "Emma, do not go back to your parents. They aren't your real parents. Cops are standing outside waiting to arrest them. You must believe me. Your real parents have appointed me to find you. I'm a detective. I've been on the search for 4 months now." My hands went numb, and my legs froze on the floor. What the hell was he saying? He then said in a lower voice, "I'm going to remove my hand now, but promise me you won't scream. Just give me a minute to give you the evidence to prove what I'm saying is true." I blinked my eyes, gesturing yes. He then released my hand and gave me a card. "This is my card, Emma. I'm working with the state police." I saw the card. It read, "I've taken your DNA from those stranded hair samples on your comb. You must come with me to the cops." That night, my entire life changed. I found out that I was living in a big lie. The story unfolded that I was a newborn. My fake parents stole me from the maternity ward, and my real parents could do nothing but sob in my memory. They appointed this man Jonathan to find me. Somehow, he found traces of my parents and saw me on my way to school. To be absolutely sure, he stole my comb that night, and my DNA came out to be a perfect match. I'm now in this new house with new and real parents. I now know why my unreal parents were so protective of me since childhood. They knew all this time and never told me. I can't just suddenly accept these new parents because the last 13 years I was raised by a pair whom I loved as my parents. Be it fake, but I still called him my dad and her my mom. I can't help but to cry on my fate. I don't know how to cope with this situation. I'm going to see them tomorrow in the state prison. They're standing trial for the charge of abduction. but I have not a single complaint against them. The amount of love and care they showed me can never be erased from my heart. God, what have you done to my life? There are some moments in your life that still give you goosebumps when you think about it. Something like that happened to me during my school days. After 1.5 months of winter vacation, our school finally resumed. However, the school's management was entirely changed, along with teachers and other staff. The building was also renovated. Everything seemed new and different, but months passed by and strange things started to happen. Several school students started to go missing. One of them was Benjamin. He was a new student in our class, but he went missing after 2 or 3 days. No one knew what was happening, not even the investigators. There was no witness, evidence, or suspect. A few weeks passed by and our regular routine resumed. My best friend Oliver and I would have sleepovers every Friday. Our parents didn't even have to be informed because they knew that on Friday, either Oliver would be coming to my home or I would be going to his. Everything was going fine in our lives besides our studies, especially math. So our math teacher, who was also our coordinator, Miss Rebecca, asked us to stay after school for extra classes. Miss Rebecca was extremely strict. There was no way that we could deny her. Oliver and I were obliged to stay after school, but Miss Rebecca barely stayed after school to assist us in math. Instead, she asked us to stay in the library and complete our homework. Days passed by and it was finally Friday. I clearly remember that day because the day would change my and Oliver's lives forever. The weather wasn't the best. The sky looked seemingly dark from 2 p.m., and the wind was also blowing heavily. In no time, school was over. Everyone happily hurried back to their homes, besides Oliver and I. We headed towards the library for our extra class, but surprisingly enough, the library was locked. "That's odd," Oliver pointed out. So we went to the teacher's room, which was also locked. There had never been a day when the teacher's room was locked. Just then, Oliver suggested checking every room. As we did just that, we realized that there was no one in the building beside him and myself. We stayed in our classroom completing our homework, but it started to get extremely dark and quite scary. In no time, we packed our bags and left for home. But as we tried to push the main door, it felt stiff. "It's locked," Oliver said. My heart sank. There was no way that this could be. We both were traumatized. "The guard must have left early, thinking no one was inside the building," I told him. "We're doomed. How are we going to get out?" Oliver screamed in panic. We kept banging on the door and windows, but nothing helped. The windows were also tightly sealed for children's safety, so no matter how loud we yelled, no one could hear us from outside. We took deep, long breaths in order to calm ourselves down, but nothing was accommodating. The hallway was also getting extremely dark. Oliver quickly turned on the light, and we closely sat together thinking about how unlucky we got that day. Just then, I had to pee, so I went to the washroom. After I finished doing my thing, I turned on the tap and splashed water on my face. But suddenly, I felt like someone was behind me in the reflection. I washed my eyes again, but I felt like someone was there. My heartbeat increased as I carefully turned around. No one was there, but I was too terrified to stay there, so I ran towards Oliver, but he wasn't there. "Oliver? Oliver!" I began screaming. Yet there was no reply. I was scared to death. "Got you!" Oliver laughed out loud. "You're crazy. I was terrified. You nearly killed me," I yelled at him, feeling infuriated. Moments passed by and we were feeling quite comfortable sitting in the hallway. But all of a sudden, the light started to flicker. In no time, it was pitch dark. Fear seemed to torment us in the darkness. Oliver fiddled around his bag, hoping to find a flashlight. Thankfully, he found it. For some reason, he always seemed to carry one. The yellow light from the flashlight illuminated the hallway. The feeling of fear subsided, but not for long. Suddenly, there was someone in front of us. We couldn't quite recognize the person, but we could tell he was staring at us. In no time, the sounds of his footsteps started increasing, and he approached closer and closer towards us. Our bodies trembled as we stood there numb. "Will you be my friend?" he whispered, in a strange, uncanny voice. I could feel nothing but blind terror, so I grabbed Oliver's hand and began running upstairs. After a while, we stopped to catch our breath. Then, we slowly turned the flashlight behind to see if the guy was still behind us. Thankfully, he was no longer there. So, taking a deep breath of relief, we looked away. But he was right there in front of us, with a huge grin on his face. Thick red blood was oozing out of his mouth as his smile became wider than his face. In no time, I realized that it was Benjamin, the guy that had been missing. My hands became cold and clammy. "Run!" Oliver started yelling as he began running down the stairs. I followed him, but Benjamin also began to follow us. The loud stomping noise continued until we hid inside the classroom. Oliver turned off the flashlight as we hid underneath the teacher's table. The reflection of the moon from the window made it a little easier for us to look around. Suddenly, a dark shadow loomed in front of the door. The footsteps became louder. Unexpectedly, Benjamin began weeping. "Am I not your friend? Why are you hiding from me?" He kept repeating those words louder and louder, then started laughing hysterically. His laughter echoed inside the room. I held Oliver's hand tightly and shut my eyes. "He left," Oliver whispered in my ears. When I opened my eyes, Benjamin had actually left, but there was a long trail of blood on the ground that was stinking like anything. "We need to run away from here. He won't spare us. Here, look out for him. I'll break the window," Oliver said. He started to pound on the window vigorously with a flashlight, while I constantly turned behind to check on Benjamin. In no time, the loud footsteps became audible. "Faster, Oliver! He's here, with a sharp knife in his hand," I said to Oliver in a shaky voice. Fortunately, Oliver managed to break through the window and jumped out. Just as I was about to get out, Benjamin got hold of my leg and began dragging me towards him. Thankfully, Oliver pulled me and managed to get me out of the window. He saved my life that day. Without turning behind, we both ran as fast as we could. But suddenly, I noticed Miss Rebecca's car parked outside. "Oliver, look!" I pointed towards the car. Upon seeing the car, Oliver also stopped. "We need to save her," he said, and started panicking. We went inside the guard room and began dialing 911. The police said that they would arrive in a few minutes. Just then, my eyes landed upon the computer. I turned it on and began to check the CCTV footage. Only the CCTV in the main door was functional, so I started to rewind the clip. What I saw shook me to my core. From the footage, we could see Miss Rebecca locking the door from inside and hiding behind one of the classrooms, then glared at us in the hallway. Before the police could come inside, we informed them about everything prior on the phone. A group of policemen surrounded the school and caught Miss Rebecca. When they questioned her, we came to know that Miss Rebecca was behind all of the kidnappings. She had lost her son in a car accident that severely affected her mental state. So, since that day, she began tempted to kill boys of her son's age. She would kidnap students and kill them, later hiding away their remains in the school playground by digging a hole, because she was confident that no one would ever check the school playground. The police found the body remains of several boys, among which one of the body was also identified as Benjamin's. Those bodies were almost decayed.
Alright, that was 3 school horror stories animated by IMR Entertainment. Now while we were watching that, I pulled 5 cards from the dead spread, and this is what I got. Tonight, the person we are connecting to is someone who has passed, was bright and able to shine light into anyone in their life. They were able to throw a light out. Like if you were having a bad day, just them being around would diminish all the shadows of doubt all around you. They would diminish them and just would fill you with warmth. That's the kind of person this person was. Right, looking back on their life, they realized that the poverty and financial loss that they dealt with actually helped shape them and ground them with their humanity. If they hadn't gone through this, they wouldn't have been as compassionate. A lesson they would like to share is that your family and wealth are most important. Don't falter in what is actually important in your life. You want to be content, but you've got your precious life, the minutes, the seconds, the hours, the days, right? You don't know how many you have left to live, and so they want you to do is spend time with your family. Make memories, because you're not going to be here forever. Nobody is. It'd be weird if people were, but unless you're a vampire. Anyway, vampires don't exist, but anyway, let's get back on topic. Something they wish they'd paid more attention to is their options. They had been given so many opportunities, so many opportunities. Now, a message they would like to share is, keep focus. You are going to be patiently gaining progress towards something great. It's just staying focused, staying strong, staying dedicated. And if you get frustrated, just stand up, shake your appendages, and I mean every one of them, stretch, let oxygen and blood flow through you, and then get back at it. Come at it from a new approach. It works with video games too, when you just can't beat that level. Alright, well, I hope that this helps. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening to me. My name is Libra Empress. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and join me again for next week's Tarot and Tarot with me, Libra Empress. I love you. Bye-bye.